Hi, I'm going to talk about how to build data accessibility for everyone by open source. So let's get started. I'm Karen Xie. I'm a product manager, builds company-wide data literacy and empowered product team. I have contributed to a metabase about how to use metabase doing self-serve product analysis. I'm also the moderator of dbt-local-taipei. Welcome, connect me via LinkedIn. So it's my own experience. Like I really need to have data accessibility for myself, so I can do product analysis. So when I'm talking about data accessibility, it means the ability to access data. Why I need the ability to access data? The prerequisite would be since I'm in a data info culture, if you are as well, you would let data as a check when you are thinking about things. That's a check for on your institution. So you will see people saying like, oh, my computer is slow because I am opening a very big spreadsheet with more than 100K rows of data. Or you will hear your colleagues saying like, oh, I need to spend 2 hours preparing the monthly report. That may be because the report is generated from multiple spreadsheets, so he needs to do like doing first one and then complete to another one and then final one. So you will see a lot of spreadsheet experts in your working environment. That means, or they know how to check the data. That means you are already in a data info culture. But you want people life, people work is easy, efficient, and if the data can be checked or we can get the data easily, we can do the self-serve analysis. So if you heard this kind of saying, that's a signal. That's a signal that they need data. They are having data in their work, but they're a little bit tired and it's a lot of effort for them to get this data. So that would be they would be in this kind of situation that only few people, some engineers or some data team members, they can access the data. So they know about the raw data, they know about what kind of data we get and how raw are these data. But most of the data users, they don't know what is the raw data. They can only speak about what they want to get, what kind of reports they want to generate. They may have multiple spreadsheets managing these reports or dashboards. So the conversation between data users and engineers are quite difficult because both sides, they don't understand the other side. So the data users, they don't know what is the raw data. Is there any error or do we have this data? What does data mean? And the engineers or the data team may not understand what kind of business logic they need to analysis or what kind of business report they want to get. So the conversation is quite hard. And I've been there. So when you are doing some brainstorming and trying to figure out what to analysis, you really need a quick feedback. You want to check, oh, if I get this number, is that right? Or I find there's an issue, I want to get another number. But in this situation, I need to wait. Can you give me this number? And the engineer needs to prioritize his task and maybe tell you, okay, next week. So that's quite a long time. My thinking need to stop and wait for the new data, then I can continue. So that's the effort, and that's the that's why the sad and the hard the emoji comes from. So this is the goal I want to get there. I hope the engineer still working on the raw data, but they can transfer, or with the analysis, they can transfer the data more close to the business logic. And they provide a business intelligence tool, a BI tool, so everyone else, they can access the transfer data. It's more easy and well documented, and there's a tool they can just drag and drop or just pick some columns they want. They understand what is data they are looking at. And all these data users, they can then build beautiful charts, dashboards, and from there. So everyone has data accessibility. That's the goal. But why don't we expect everyone just access the raw data? I just open the server and get everyone to access. Because that's a higher bar for everyone. That means we are requiring everyone to understand the raw data But as you know, raw data may have some historical issue. We probably already duplicated some columns, or the meanings already changed, but the column name is still there. So it's quite confusing. If we want to make it clear, and that's a lot of effort for the data team to do the documentation. And plus, it means everyone need to understand the relation between different tables or even different data sets, and they need to know how to calculate this data. They need to write SQL. That's a higher bar. But if we only ask everyone to access the transfer data, because the data is already transferred, it's more clean, it's more easy to understand. And for the data users, the concept is more similar, we give them a quite big spreadsheet, and then they just do the pivot table from the spreadsheet. They can easily pick some columns and sum or count what the data they want. So that's lower criteria for them. So we don't expect everyone access the raw data. We expect them to access the transfer data. So the goal here is we want to empower everyone to do self-serve analysis. For doing self-serve analysis, that means the people need to understand the data. They can access the data easily, and they can build the reports easily. Say, for example, if there is a subscription business, the general, we want to understand, okay, where does the subscription come from? Where's the channels? We want to know the historical trend. We want to have a monthly subscription. And we want to know what kind of discount we offer, which one is better for us to generate these subscriptions. So we want to analyze the coupon. And if we can get these three charts from just one table, because these raw data are actually related together, but from different point of view, we can generate these three different kinds of charts from just one table. That would be easy, right? So how do we do that? First, of course, we still need to understand what kind of report do people want, what's the results. And then we need to understand, do we have these materials to present this result? What's the raw data? And here come the first difficulties, that when we are looking for the raw data, most of the time, it's time for archaeology. Most time, we need to ask someone who worked there for a long time, so he understands or he remembers all the historical issues, errors, or he can track the code and tell me what is this naming of the data exactly mean? Where's the data get? How do we log this kind of data, or how do we calculate this kind of data as the raw data? So this is the first one. The first difficulty we need to overcome. But the fortune is we only need to do the archaeology once. Then we will document that, keep it updated in the transfer data. I will talk about that later. And from the step 1 and step 2, we need to back and forth and figure out how do we transfer. How do we transfer this data close enough to the business logic for the business users are easy to understand and just pick them, just like a pivot table. And there's come to the second difficulties we need to overcome. Because before we are doing this, most of the users, they are doing spreadsheet. They already have their understanding about the data. They already have their formula to calculating these metrics. So when we give them what we transfer, we need to understand their understanding. We need to understand their formula and make sure they trust what we give them. And how to make sure they trust, they must compare what they get before, what they count before, and to the transfer data we offer them. And theirs may have some dispatch. They may have some difference. That may because, not because our misunderstanding, but may because they already misunderstand the raw data for quite a long time. That would happen. Or they may have some different definition of the data or the different definition of the metric from different teams. The revenue in marketing, the revenue in sales, and the revenue in finance team may be different. So that's another difficulty we need to overcome. So though the data is come from raw and we transfer and final get a report, but actually when we are doing this, we need to understand what's the report first, and then we check what's the raw data, and then we go back and forth to clean this mess and decide how we transfer this data. Back to the example, in this subscription business, we want to analyze channel, historical growth, and the coupon usage. So think about what's the raw data we need to have. Okay, we need to have subscription, we need to have orders, we need to have coupons, channels, and users data. And from there, we can do the first time transfer. We want all the money things together. So we have the first transfer data, we call it stage. Because we don't just put this data, this stage table for the end user, we will do that again and transfer that again. So the first stage data will be order revenue. We combine subscription, order, coupon, and channel together. So we know what's the order, how much we get from this order, the original price, and after the discount price, and after the discount, the actual price, and what's the subscription. So that's the order revenue. And we want to know who do this subscription. So we have another stage data called subscription users. It will record about who on what device buy this subscription and what's the subscription. Is that a yearly or monthly or quarterly subscription? And we combine these two stage data together, we have the whole big table, we call it order user, and that's the March data we will provide to the end data users. And from this order user table, we have every column, every detail about the orders, who buy this order, what subscription is this order are related, and if this user using any coupon, what's the coupon name, or how much the discount is, and where's the order comes from, which channel, or what's the user's device. So we have all these information, and from this big table, this smart table, we can generate subscription channel, monthly subscription, and coupon usage, and even more. We can analyze, okay, what kind of device would buy this subscription? User will mostly buy from desktop or mobile app or mobile website. So that's possible just from one table. So that's the brainstorming we need to figure out how do we want to transfer this data and do the smart data for the business user. So in this process, we're actually doing the data pipeline from the original ETL to ELT. E means extract, transfer, and load. Because due to the cloud storage was expensive, so we want to make sure we only stored the usable, the valuable data. So we do the transfer before we load. But since nowadays the cloud storage computing are quite cheap and easy, so we can load everything we want and then transfer later. That's the cost efficiency. So from ETL to ELT. And in this process, we will see three different roles. The first one is still the engineers. They understand all the data structure, they design the data structure, the relationship between all different data, and they understand what kind of the platform or what's the user log, how we get this raw data. And they will set up this environment, including the data warehouse and BI tool. And the other role is analysis. So analysis will do the data transfer and make sure there's a single source of truth, and to earn the trust for the data user and make sure data users are trust this data, they are comfortable to use what we provide. And there's a new role called analytics engineers. They will provide clean data. They make sure that the transfer data are easy to reuse and the pipeline is clean and we understand the whole structure. And for everyone else, they are the data users. They just use the transfer data. So most of them, they just use the BI tool. It's easy to drag and drop or generate like beautiful charts or dashboard. If you are the advanced data user, they know how to write SQL and they can build the reports. So we lower the bar for everyone. They can access the data and the data is well documented and easy for them to understand and easy for them to like change, oh, I want to compare this one to that one. It's easier. So they can think and analyze quickly. The response is quicker than before. So back to this chart. So the engineer will cover the extract and load, and analysis cover the transfer, and everyone else just do the reports. So I'm going to introduce two open source tools to help us to facilitate this empowering everyone to self-serve analysis. I will introduce dbt and metabase. So dbt is a data transfer tool with GitHub, and of course, because it only do data transfer, we still need a data warehouse. And metabase is the BI tool. So let's talk about dbt first. So the benefit using dbt is not just about writing SQL. It's about when you write a SQL, you can reuse that. And if you are using the function ref and source in dbt, it will auto-generate the DAG. So as you can see this chart, you can see the upstream and downstream all the way, and you understand, okay, where's the transfer data come from? What's the source? And you can even, with the BI tool, you understand this transfer data, how this transfer data being used. For the data team, it's quite easy to understand and make sure if I change anything, what's the impact, what's the downstream table there, so I know if I need to change the transfer logic or I need to notify anyone else. So that's really straightforward for the data team to manage the data pipeline. And the other feature is dbt-doc. So we keep mentioning that we need to let everyone else understand the data. So we need to do the documentation. And since we spend a lot of time doing the archaeology, make sure what's the raw data, is there any discrepancy or is any like misunderstanding or misuse about the data name. So we want to document that. So you can see in this code, we only need to write name and description just when we are doing the transfer. You can do the documentation for source data and of course the transfer data. And then we need to sync this data to metabase. That's the tool everyone else are accessing. So when people are checking this data, they need to see the documentation right away. So using the persist doc, you can sync the documentation to all the major data warehouse. And then there's a tool called dbt metabase, so you can also sync this documentation to metabase. It's very key for our implementation since we need to let everyone understand what is the data. We want to make sure the documentation is up to date. And there's another thing called dbt test. So when you are writing the documentation, you can also do the test as well at the same time. So we want everyone trust the data we provide, the transfer data. So we need to make sure the data quality is good enough so they can trust. So we will do these tests before we do any transfer. Make sure the source data and make sure the transfer data is good enough. And because everyone else, when they are doing, before we empower them using the BI tool, most of them, they are just spreadsheet experts. So they may have some manual data. We don't want to exclude that. So using dbt seed, you can include these CSV files into your project and just treat it as your data table. And once we do all these transfer pipeline from the raw data transfer like many times and to the Mars data, we don't want to do that repeatedly, of course. So we can schedule that. We can schedule dbt run. You can specify a time or you just schedule the run daily or weekly. So you only need to create this pipeline transfer and create this translation from the raw data to the Mars data once. Do it once. And there's another good function called incremental models. So when you are scheduling it, you don't need to rewrite or create a whole table again every day. You can just create or update since the last time run. It will save the cost. And of course, the most important thing is you don't want to, put your production data in a risk. You want to make sure since this data are already fine, we don't want to touch that. So you will decrease the errors using these incremental models. And dbt is work with GitHub. So using GitHub, of course, we can do the version control. And to me, I think the best benefit is you can collaborate your SQL with others. So someone who are the SQL expert than me, they can check my code and make sure the SQL is writing in an efficient way, is a clean way. And also it can enable CI. So before you update any data to your production, you can make sure you can do another test and make sure the production test is passed. And then we would override or update the data. And let's talk about metabase. So it's the BI tool. And the concept behind the metabase is a question and dashboard. So every query is a question, and then you can add a question to multiple dashboards. So in this way, you can reuse your query. The UI for metabase is quite simple. So one of my colleagues, he never learned about SQL, he never learned about metabase. In the 11th days in the SQL course, he can do this kind of beautiful dashboard by himself. I think the most important function in metabase is know your data. That's keep emphasis on that. We do a lot of documentation. We make sure we well document the data. We already do the HRology. We already do the transfer, and we want other people to understand how we transfer this data. What's the logic? So we will write the document, and with this blue book icon, when you are writing SQL or when you are picking up the data, you can click the icon and see the data description and the title and even some sample values, and make sure you don't guess any data. You just check what you are looking at. And for the data users, you can provide variables, so they just type in what kind of variables, and using this query quite easy. And you have 16 ways to visualize, so it's really easy for you to build a beautiful dashboard or charts. And once you build this dashboard, you can subscribe via email or Slack. So again, do it once. Once you done this dashboard and send this dashboard to your stakeholder, and you will auto refresh and send out the update data. It also provides very detailed permission control, so you can set permission detail to not just data set. You can set the permission to tables or columns. Columns means the folders of these dashboard questions, and it can be set by groups, so it's easy for you to do all these settings. So I hope you have this takeaway that you will think, oh, it's doable. I can empower everyone access the transfer data. So if you are engineers, you don't need to check the spreadsheet errors again. You don't need to answer what is the data, what's the revenue here, what's the unique user here. And for the data users, you don't need to wait for someone give you the data. You can just pick the data right away and keep thinking what kind of analysis you want. Keep checking and play with it. So build data accessibility to everyone means engineers and analysts will make sure the data is quality and the pipeline from raw data to transfer data, and also people can use the BI tool. And everyone else, they can own the reports. They can change the reports and change the columns anytime they want. So both sides are happy. The most important thing is it can reinforce the data-informed culture, because when the data has good quality and self-serve is quite easy and quickly, everyone likes to check the data. It will raise the data literacy. It's in the positive cycle. So how do we do that? We do it with dbt and metabase. First, we need to understand what kind of report people want, and then we need to know if we have this raw data. Then we will figure out how do we clean and transfer this data to a level that the data user is quite easy, just like doing a pivot table and pick what they want and generate reports. And of course, we want to advocate for SQL, and we want to let people know how to use metabase. So the goal is we hope like recurring reports can be sent out automatically, and all the self-serve, all the ad hoc question can be self-serve. That's the goal. Thank you. Thank you. This is all my speaking here. So here comes the live Q&A session. I have this Slido QR code. Please scan here and I will join the live discussion. Thank you again.